Join us for our upcoming fundraiser, A Feast for the Senses, at Ardmore Music Hall on September 29th to help HRN expand our table and provide even more resources to the next generation of food storytellers. This is going to be an unforgettable night of flavors, crafted by Best of Philly chefs Randy Rucker and Eli Collins, with sounds curated by Philly-based Spaga featuring Aaron Magner, and conversations inspired by Delicious City Philly host Eli Kulp. You can find tickets at heritageradionetwork.org/feast. And if you can't make it to our fundraiser, please consider donating to support our education programs at heritageradionetwork.org/donate.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
Westholme is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm Allison Kane, and welcome to In the Sauce, a podcast about building consumer brands from the ground up. I love doing this show because I get to interview everyone from production gurus to marketing and social media mavens, anyone who can guide me on this crazy journey. This is the story of building Haven's Kitchen sauces, but it's also the story of every growing brand because we're all in the sauce. Today, I'm speaking with Clara Pei, founder and CEO of Unite, a health and nutrition company that launched in 2020 with a line of globally inspired protein bars. In addition to leading Unite, Clara is a founding member of Included, a group that supports BIPOC CEOs and founders in the CPG industry, and a member of the Young Presidents Organization and the Network of Executive Women. Unite has grown rapidly over the past 4 years and is now sold in approximately 4,000 stores, including Target, H-E-B, Sprouts, Meijer, and Albertsons. Welcome, Clara.
Thanks so much. It's really great to be on the podcast with you, Allison. I've been a huge fan of yours for a long time.
Thank you. Well, you were one of those people that I think I ran to in slow motion at Expo West. I saw you and it was like, da, na, 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 and I just started running and it was very romantic for me.
Cute. Yeah.
But you're a force. So it was fun to meet you, and I'm excited to talk about your story and to hear a lot of your wisdom because I think you have stuff to drop. So we'll get right into it. I think the first thing I kind of wanted to ask you about that stood out to me from the beginning was that aside from global flavors, I'm going to get right into sort of product here. You also changed up, I think, what I think of as a typical color scheme on bars in general. So You focused on the package, you focused on flavor. There are a lot of bars in the world, and yet somehow you managed to still create something different from what was out there. And I think it's going to be really important for people to hear generally how you approach that and the process, because it's more important than ever to be differentiated. So I'd like to just hear all of your thoughts about that.
Thanks for actually noticing. So yeah, I feel like the protein bar space has gotten more colorful since our launch. But if you go back to 2018 and 2019, when I was ideating on this and really thinking about what I was trying to do, who I was trying to serve, what I was trying to bring to market, all the protein bars back then were screaming health and wellness. And for some reasons, those were equated with brown and white and green and really almost like a granola paper bag. If it was too flashy, it was a candy bar. And if it was too, if it was lacked color, that meant it was more healthy for some reason. And so for me, flavor and fun and global flavors, when I started to think about the color palettes I wanted to use, I started thinking about international travel. And if you're in a bazaar in Mexico City or in Morocco or Cinque Terre in Italy or anywhere around the world, color is really used to evoke fun and emotion. And that's what I think of when I think of global global flavors is I see it in color.
Mm-hmm.
And so I literally just grabbed a Pantone book. We designed all our packaging like in one afternoon in 4 hours, me and a designer.
Right.
Like it literally went so fast because I had a very clear vision of exactly what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, what are the complementary colors? I had 4 flavors kind of picked out for launch, or 3 flavors at that time actually picked out for launch, and with a few more in mind, thinking about like, kind of tasting the rainbow, or
Right.
how would the colors go together. So we really did want to stand out on shelf for color. We want, also like packaging is important. Like, we use a shinier wrapper. All the wrappers were
Mm-hmm.
matte. And I was like, let's make it glossy. Like why?
Mm-hmm.
And the inspiration for that came from like the potato chip aisle. In the potato chip aisle, nobody puts their
Mm-hmm.
stuff in brown bags. Everything is screaming color and yellow and reds and oranges and blue. And I really took the cue from that. And I was cautioned not to do that like the glare wouldn't make it as legible. But,
Right.
you kind of just have to go back to your own instincts. And being a
Mm-hmm.
consumer and creating something for yourself really gave me that. How would it pop on shelf to me?
It's funny that we're talking about this now, because I separately started this little like not advice column on Substack,
Mm-hmm.
just, in my free time. And the last kind of incoming I got was from someone who feels like they're being copied all the time. And so I've been doing research into like what happens in a zeitgeist when people think they're being original, but yet everyone has the same sneaker, or all of the fonts look the same, or millennial pink, or whatever. And it's interesting that you're talking about this, because everyone needs to remember in 2019, bright colors and glossy package and all of that was not
Right.
actually the zeitgeist. It was still very, it was like post-millennial pink, but
Yeah.
pre, bold, big, loud.
Right.
It was kind of in that in between stage. And it's just, it wasn't that long ago, and yet it was a really long time ago. And you did do this, you were sort of iconoclastic in a way, making these new flavors and these new colors, which now might seem less so, because big and bold and global and bright is now the name of the game. But it wasn't. And so I guess what I'm extracting from you is that you trusted your own instincts.
Yeah.
And I guess what gave you the confidence to trust your instincts?
More than that, I mean, I was warned not to do it. Nobody's going to buy these
Right.
flavors. They're so niche.
Uh-huh.
There's no market for this. And I just knew fundamentally that I lived in an area that celebrates diversity and multiculturalism. And there's every single one of my friends is from another part of the world, right? Like we were all
Mhm.
kind of born other places and met at USC. And so I was testing my flavors on my friends first. And then when it comes to
Mhm.
packaging, we have been knocked off to death. Right? Like everybody
Yeah.
came up with a Mexican hot chocolate after we did. It's like that was not a flavor anybody had
Mhm.
ever seen in a protein bar. A churro, same thing. Peanut butter and jelly,
Yeah.
even peanut butter and jelly. I was told that has been tried so many times. Nobody likes peanut butter and jelly in a bar. And I was like, well, I don't think it's been done right. And it needs to taste like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And now that's a trending flavor. And even, the kind of like
Right.
the Uncrustable Challenger brands have come out,
Mhm.
to claim that. But people do worry that they're being copycatted. And I think it's a natural human instinct to want to protect your turf. But I kind of got to
Yeah.
the part where it's like, okay, I'm not worried that they copy me. I'll be worried when they stop copying me,
Right.
right? That you're going to continue to innovate. And for me, like product development, packaging development, it never really ends. I'm always going to fine tune it. I'm always going to
Right.
make it better. You can't rest on your laurels. It's not like, you invent a widget and it just sits on a shelf. It's a
Right.
living, breathing thing to me. So I think there's a lot to be said for
Yeah.
original thought, and there's very little of it. And because I think as I grow in this industry, I realize there's higher stakes when you have more distribution to
Right.
change things. So it's easier to be done at the stage that we're in, where we can still be nimble.
Yeah. So you were very nimble because you were pre-launch during, that sort of time where you were ideating and you were thinking about the colors and all of it. And you were, from my understanding, ready to rock and roll. What were your launch plans that were supposed to happen the first week of March in 2020?
Well, so we had made our first production run, which was a major investment because I wanted to make sure that we had good product that, I knew we'd have to shoot our shot and be perceived as an established player. We couldn't be, a mom and pop that just like showed up to Expo West without anything to show. And so we invested in the packaging, we invested in the product. I had leased a warehouse here in my hometown and an office space to, take the product in and start to kind of, hope to land some distributors or land some accounts. And so we had the booth halfway set up. I'll never forget it. At Expo West, we had booked a booth and I had just walked the show the previous year. I'd never known about Expo West before that. So went to business school at Expo West the previous year, couldn't even get in, and then booked my booth 10 by 10 in the, new product pavilion. And it was halfway set up. And we got the call that Expo West would not go on, that COVID was going to crush it. And then I was like, okay, well, there goes those plans. And now I have a warehouse full of product.
And had you had any contact with any distributors?
I didn't even know who the distributors were.
Right. And did you have a Shopify site or anything? Like, were you even thinking about D2C?
Yeah. Okay. We had launched a Shopify site and, we could do D2C. So I just kind of launched it online. And then, in my previous life, I worked in my family business, which was plumbing manufacturing and distribution. And
this is my favorite. I have very strong positive feelings about that industry.
Oh, good.
Like unusually strong for an urban woman who does not know how to fix a toilet. But I just think it's like the best industry. Anyway, go on. We'll talk about it if we get to it at the end. But yes, so you did that for 17 years.
A long time.
That was your career.
That was my career. That was my whole, life's work. And in that industry, I didn't ever use LinkedIn, because LinkedIn was this weird place where people were just soliciting me, and we were B2B, we weren't B2C. So we were just business to business. And so I had a LinkedIn profile, but never really did anything with it. Just kind of had it, didn't want to be left out, but had a profile. And so then I was like, well, let me see if I can start to network with people online on LinkedIn. So I just started telling our story and, talking about the brand. And Ray Latif was going to do an elevator talk specifically for people who didn't get to launch at Expo West. And you could come on and pitch on Elevator Pitch, which I'd been listening to that podcast. And so I had my husband and we set up our trade show booth in our office. I'm like, let's just set it up and pretend like we're pitching at a trade show. I knew everybody else was going to phone it in, and I didn't want to phone it in. If we were going to be on this recorded podcast. So we set it up, we pretended we were at a trade show, and I did my pitch. And it was we've been in business 2 weeks. We're brand new. And we did such a laugh. And that 7 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever it was really launched the brand, because it got out to this wider audience. And then, we had a buyer, Dwight Richmond from the, he was at the Fresh Market then, who saw me pitch and invited us to pitch to him. He invited any brand that wanted to pitch to him. And so, it was April or so, we pitched him, and he loved the product, loved me. And, we didn't end up getting into the Fresh Market right away, but that, set off a sequence of events where I started to feel really confident in the brand.
Yep.
And then because of the pandemic, everyone was like, oh, I'm so sorry that this is happening to you. And I got a lot of sympathy. And I was just like, wait a minute, it's not just happening to me. It's happening to you too. Right. It's happening to the whole world.
Yeah.
So I felt actually really lucky that I had a product that I could donate to help first responders and schools that were struggling to feed, kids that were on school lunch programs and charities. And, I couldn't donate a toilet seat to save somebody's life in my plumbing products, but I could donate these.
Although, that would be, the world needs more toilet seats to be new, but go on. Yes, I understand. No, I understand, because we had a fresh product, and it was actually a point of frustration that we couldn't be as helpful as we wanted to be. And I would imagine having a protein bar, especially one that appeals to all ages, is a great,
It's shelf stable.
it's a great thing to be able to, yeah.
I mean, I'd
to
rather
give.
be lucky than good. And I was really lucky that I picked a shelf stable product.
Oh
right?
my gosh.
Like that, I had no
Yeah.
idea that was good.
Trust me on that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and it was highly nutritious. And like, you know, it would go on to win nutrition awards, not just then, but then, you know, things just like really got rolling after that. And donating the products actually felt so good and really set us on this like charitable path that I was intended to be on anyway. But just a lot sooner. And it was so wonderful to like actually COVID accelerated all of that.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and talk about how from donating product 4 years ago to like being in a lot of stores today. I'm psyched to hear about that growth. We'll be right back.
Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. In Northern Australia, there's a different approach to raising high-quality beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and Northern Territory, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. Westholme stewards 16 million acres of rangeland guided by their natural ecosystem. They're led by a belief that if they balance the needs of their cattle with the needs of the environment, both can thrive. Westholme's team of rangeland experts and nature managers use a variety of tools to monitor and respond to the welfare of the environment, like satellites that assess grass health and on-the-ground research. Cattle are happier when they have the freedom to forage and explore, so Westholme ensures that they can roam wild, foraging at will for the first 2 to 3 years of their lives. Their cows graze on native grasses like Mitchell grass, which is only found in Australia, along with dozens of other plants, herbs, and seasonal legumes. The result is a high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia and a flavor suited to complement any cuisine. Westholme believes that when nature leads, flavor follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
I'm back with Clara Pei, founder of Unite. Okay, so before the break, you were saying, first of all, bold. You were like, I'm not going to, ding dong around here. I'm going to get myself a big booth and we're going to launch like a big kid, which, it's interesting because I hear, start with 3 stores and build a really, blah, blah, blah. And to some extent, that's what we did. We did 14 Whole Foods, then 50 Whole Foods, then National Whole Foods, and then, increased distribution. I don't know that everyone has the liberty of doing that as slowly anymore. I think that we need scale. At this point, if we're supposed to be funding our own operations and we're not being subsidized with investors, I think those days of, it's okay to wait 3 years, just, focus on like building some loyalty in, the small natural channel doors around your neighborhood. I don't know that works as well anymore, ironically, without the money. But I'm curious, you did go really quickly and you got a lot of big key accounts, conventional accounts too. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the pros and cons and not only just how it happened, but, you need cash to support that kind of growth and what your reflections are on it, generally.
Yeah, we got really lucky, Allison. And like, there's definitely a lot of luck to how you launch and when you launch and where you launch. For us, my goal was to win at home. We didn't really want to go national. We wanted to be local. I wanted to grow in Orange County, LA, where there's plenty of diversity, plenty of population of people to test and grow. And
plenty of grocery stores.
Plenty of grocery stores. But that, with COVID happening at the time that it did, grocery store buyers were not taking meetings. And especially in the bar category, in 2020, it took a major hit because bars are largely an on-the-go.
I remember that.
On-the-go food. Yeah, it was like a 40% hit. So nobody was looking at that category. Retailers were worried about keeping their toilet paper in stock and, Clorox wipes. Nobody was looking at bars as like, oh, what's new and innovative? What can we do to disrupt it? It just wasn't even a thing.
Right.
And so, in my vein of wanting to start local, I went to the grocery store I shop at most frequently, which is Bristol Farms.
They're always so great.
So
Yep.
wonderful. And I was really lucky in that the store manager of my local store knew me because we had served on a finance committee together at our church.
Mhm.
And so I was like, hey, Rick, like, how do I get this into your store? And he's like, well, I can't really do much. It's done at the buying level, but we do have a local program, Clara. You're a local mom. This is a great story. And I can introduce you to the local buyer and you could just meet with her. And I was like, yes, please. Like, I'll take any meeting. Right. And so
Right.
he set up a meeting and
Mhm.
she came to the store. And I remember we were in masks. Right. And I'm like, she's tasting
Yeah.
the bars and she loves them. And she's like, I love these. I'm going to put it into, I think it was like 5 or 7 stores here locally. And we're going to, give you a good display. And she gave me this awesome like register display and like really like they
Wow.
made custom signs. Because it was really like doing something that they wanted to do, which was, really highlight local
Right.
brands. And we got this great velocity right out the gate. And so then I had a data.
Great story.
I had a data story,
Yep.
right? And I knew that like I was shooting my shot. And I have these great pictures of my kids and I at that Bristol Farms. Like I think it was like a superhero day at school. So my daughter's dressed as Wonder Woman and we're in our shields and
Right.
our masks and looking at the display. I just like such a cherished memory now in hindsight.
Yeah.
But they gave us a data story. And then, I was just
Yeah.
looking for opportunities to network. And I had an opportunity to meet a Walmart diversity manager. And I pitched her on Unite and she said, well, I don't make any buying decisions, but I can introduce you to the buyer if, and if he wants to invite you to a line review, that's up to him. And so my next pitch was to Walmart. And
Wow. Okay.
yeah,
I mean, that's wild, right?
yeah, it's super wild, like pinch
Yeah.
me moment, but extremely validating. And like even having a seat at that table. And again, going back to my plumbing background, I already knew how to do business with big box retailers. I already knew what they cared about. I already understood how to do EDI. I wasn't like such a novice in that, I think there's a lot of like, I have a dream people and then they can't really execute because they don't even understand the terminology of how to execute. Right. And I came from a distribution background and I was like, okay, if we can distribute 8,000 products, 3 is no problem at all. So, we get this meeting with this diversity manager and she introduces me to the buyer and then I meet the buyer and he just, they have the same data that like the US is shifting in the way it looks. And, there are a lot of multicultural consumers and we were, inviting a new person into the set. We weren't making the temp peanut butter and chocolate flavor. It was something truly unique, truly innovative. The product tasted really good. And I'd formulated it in my kitchen, so I knew it tasted good, right? Like I knew that I'd use the highest quality ingredients and the highest quality things that I could find that I would feed my own family. And so I thought that we would launch at Walmart in like 50 stores, 100 stores. I didn't know how they launched products, right? I was really hoping for that, but it was 860. And it was like literally national from the beginning. It was like coast to coast from Alaska to Puerto Rico, mostly their super centers. And then it was like, okay, do or die. But your question about like, financing and like you kind of have to go big. It's important to like choose the right customers. Walmart pays on time and doesn't kind of mess around.
And the margin's pretty solid.
And the margin is, you are definitely bringing in an EDLP, but you're, you're, the inputs going in, if you can do it. And so we had to shoot our shot and, we were expanded to over 2,000 stores in the second year and, really got our name out there and got a national presence. And I think that gave a lot of other retailers, who know permission to know that like, okay, if the Fortune 1 company, we can execute. And we never had a stock out in 2 years during the pandemic, during all the global crises. We never had a back order. We never had pricing issues. Like we really ran a tight ship with that launch. It gave everybody, the confidence to know if you can execute there, you can serve a 15 store chain. You can serve a 30 store chain.
I have many things I want to, as the cool kids say, double click on, going all the way back to data story, because I glossed over that because to me, I'm like, of course, but I want to sort of like go in a little bit for listeners who this does come up quite a bit. I think going back to sort of my statement that maybe that like core then more thing makes sense in theory, but is a little hard to do in practice. The reason why that is important, that core of like whether it's a region or a particular account or a channel even, matters before you go any bigger or extend from there, is partly to make sure, to your point, that you can handle it, to understand your consumer better, to kind of really understand your differentiation, because it's probably a little different from what you thought it was when you started the thing. But mostly, to use, what Clara was saying, it's about this data story. It's, we just launched in these 5 stores. We're selling 3 times the category average of units per store per week. Here's the graph. Here's us. Here's the category average. We're not just doing that when we're on promo, blah, blah, blah. This is our incrementality to the set. And then taking that and saying to the next retailer, we can replicate this because we know how to do this. And so on and so on and so on, bigger and bigger and bigger. So is there anything you want to add to kind of the idea of data story for new founders?
Yeah, I was nodding my head the entire time you were talking, Elf. And I think, for me, having the proof point, it's a data set, it's a data point. Everything sounds good in a deck. Yeah, I bet you're the best tastiest chip or soda or name your product, right? But the truth lies in what actually happens once it's on shelf. And that's where it's like radical product market fit, which is like a fancy way of just saying, do people like your product? Do they buy it? Do they buy it again? Do they tell their friends to buy it? And like, we're not even quite there in like what I'm happy with yet, even today, right? Like I want the product to be so good that you will feel so compelled to tell your grandma about it. And everybody that will listen to you, and I think there's like 1 in 10 people that are, want to influence other people's buying decisions. And I just happen to be one of those people.
Me too. We're the purple cows.
Yes.
We're called purple cows. Yeah. There was a book about us. Like,
exactly.
The minute that I try a bath soap that I like, I'm like, everybody try this bath soap. And like, I'm not like an influencer in that sense, but I am like very excited to influence.
Why? You just want them to have the joy that you have. No, it's just
exactly. And smell as good as me. You should smell as good as
my
me.
My friends call it Oprah's and Clara's favorite things, because I'm always like, this is the best thing ever. But it actually makes Christmas gift giving easier for me, because I just buy everybody the same thing, whatever my favorite thing is. Like one year it was Vuori joggers, and I bought every friend and every family member a pair of black Vuori joggers, and like they just love them.
That's very funny. Okay, so anything else on the proof point or the data story? Because I have my next double click.
So I think ideally, like people talk about starting at farmers markets, like that wasn't going to happen for us, right? It was pandemic. I wasn't going to go to any farmers market,
right?
So test with your network, not just your friends' friends, and create some kind of informal survey even, so that after they taste your product, they're giving you feedback. And it's like the feedback loop is really important. And that's how you get to good data stories is, you have to get honest feedback. And even during that first year, I remember I did a webinar for like Stanford Business School food program or something like that. And it was the first time I actually physically saw somebody eating my bar that I didn't know personally.
Isn't that the most amazing? I had one of those experiences where I posted about this a couple months ago. I saw an Instacart shopper looking for our sauce, and he was holding the phone with the picture of it, and he was like looking for it in the case, and I was like, that's my sauce. And he was so excited that he was like, nuh-uh, like, no way. And I'm like, yes. And then of course the person from the grocery store came over, because neither one of us could find it, which is a bummer, but was okay. And then the 3 of us were all excited about it. But it really is, that's the addictive stuff, when someone random, or I don't know, I don't even know the people who have FitJoy, but I saw a FitJoy empty bag on the street.
Yeah.
And I like wanted to take a picture of it and send it to the FitJoy people and be like, it's out there. People are eating this. Like, this is very exciting for you. You know,
that's Amy, and she would appreciate that. And I have her text him.
Okay, you want to text her? I mean, I didn't take the picture because I didn't know the people, but I was just so thrilled for them. I literally felt that like joy for them without knowing.
Yeah,
them.
no, she's awesome.
Yeah, totally. I will. Okay. So then the next thing that you said that I was really interested in it, and we've talked a little bit about this, and I think every retailer who I've ever had on has said this, but you said something really important. Different retailers have different needs. They're looking for different things. You need to be able to speak their language. You know, we have a tendency as founders, and we need to have this because otherwise we wouldn't do this business, to think that our products are absolutely essential to the world continuing to spin. And that why wouldn't anyone see that this is like the best? I mean, of course their set needs this. Look at this. Like, of course their consumer will love this. Of course. But if we don't know the language that they speak in, and we don't take what we have and interpret it in a way that is compelling to them based on what they are looking for. And I'll give you a really good example. There's a retailer who, you know, if you just go on their website, they talk about how they're trying to make food more accessible for certain parts of the population that are, you know, have trouble with accessibility. They don't live near a Whole Foods. They have a hard time finding, you know, natural and organic products, et cetera. And someone was filling out a new product sort of description in like one of our kind of applications for them. And one of the questions was about the demographic. And someone filled out, you know, that it's a more, you know, potentially a little bit more urban, someone who, you know, might have a little bit more sophisticated taste. And it was like no fault of anyone's, but, you know, I was like, hey, that might be a turnoff to them. Like, but it's not necessarily true or not true. It is both true and also not entirely true. But even that, you know, just remembering that they're evaluating thousands and thousands of things, and position yourself for what they are looking for. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not, but, you know.
I think it comes back and down, and I always get this question a lot, but it's really about empathy for the buyer. Mm-hmm. What do they care about? Yeah. What's going to get them a promotion?
Right.
How are they going to get bonused? Yep. You know, do they care about in-stock levels? Yes. Do they care about what sells? Yes. Right. So like my job always when I'm pitching is to listen as much as I can. Once I've like done my spiel, I do it as concise as I can, the highest level points. You want that open dialogue, because even if you don't win the business this first time, you've just gotten more information, and it's not been filtered through a broker, and it's not been filtered through a third party, but you get that chance. And I do every pitch myself, right? And I don't let, you know, anybody pitch on my behalf if I'm in the room, because who knows my product better than me?
Right. Me too.
And so really understanding what that retailer cares about. And it might be something very confusing. Right. Like I had a retailer who I thought was a perfect fit for our product. It was a Hispanic grocery chain, who I will not name. But, you know, I was like, look, we're perfect for you. We have these great Hispanic flavors. They're all natural. You can bring a more nutritious offering into your store. You know, you don't really sell protein bars here. You have like a couple, but like this is something formulated and will be perfect for your demographic. And that buyer just like looked at me and was like, I don't, you know, I want to sell soda and sugary cereals. That's what I care about. And it was like he was the gatekeeper. Right. And I was like, wow, he's going to be harder to close than Walmart. You know, I remember that conversation.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, and it's okay if it's not a fit for that, you know, whatever their goal is, It's just not a fit, and you don't take it
right. You're not going to do well there anyway if it's not, right? Because they won't.
Why do I take it
they
personally?
Won't do anything to help.
There's like 80,000 possible points of distribution, right? Like I don't need to worry about this 75. You just kind of move on.
I mean, I also, I remember in the Chobani incubator, I've talked about this on the podcast a lot because Federico, who at that time was like the head of sales at Chobani, who now runs one of the energy drinks, but he was like, Allie, you think too much about the consumer. You also have to think about the customer. You're not selling to a person who's making dinner. You're selling to a person who has a category that they need to manage, and it needs to do better than their category did last time. And the data that you're talking about is too big picture. You need to be much more specific on like, what is your differentiation to what's already there and how are you incremental?
Right.
And it was like a massive brain shift for me, customer, not consumer. And even for things that are D2C, if you are planning on having, distribution through grocery being your main way of reaching the world, you've got to get into that mindset. And it doesn't mean that you don't have both, but it's to your point. It's what are they caring about? Know their margin requirements, know what's going to be compelling to them, know who else is on your shelf, know the language that they use because it's all really confusing. Know what your offer is, all that. The other thing that you said that I wanted to kind of, hone in on a little bit is what you said about inviting a new person into the set. I think that's really interesting because I haven't necessarily heard that as much as I've heard, it's a premium offering in a tired category, or it's, bringing a new innovative package or like innovative flavor. But this is bringing a new person into the set. And I'd love you to just kind of expound on that a little bit and how much you lean into that in terms of like making your point about being differentiated.
Well, like incrementality and bringing new consumers into a set is always like really desirable, right? And for me, it comes back to kind of my own immigrant experience of like coming to America at age 5 in the early 80s. There was always like ethnic food that you ate at home. And then there's like American food. And I would always beg my mom, like, why can't we have hamburgers for dinner? I'm like, why can't you make fried chicken? Or, why do we have to eat this like strange food all the time? Right. And so like, that's so different from my friends' foods. And, when you extrapolate that into wellness and you go and you've had like this rich food history, right? And I'm, ate all kinds of cuisines growing up. And then you go into the protein bar set like I did, and you're like, oh my gosh, like they're all the same flavor. They're always vanilla, chocolate, Oreo cookie, peanut butter, banana bread, blueberry,
cookies and cream,
apple pie. I didn't eat an apple pie till I went to college. Like apple pie is not nostalgic to me. It doesn't make me think of childhood. Right. It makes me think of like American comfort food, right? And so if you are a person like me, which is like a lot of people in America, born somewhere else, brought here, and you get a diagnosis like I did. You're gluten sensitive. You need to avoid gluten, right? And you go to try to find diet compliant food, and like those foods don't resonate with nostalgia, which is what everybody is selling in the shelf, right? Now you have an opportunity to bring a new customer in, somebody who doesn't buy protein bars because they don't like peanut butter and chocolate.
Apple pie.
They don't like apple pie. Like that doesn't sound craveable to them. But a baklava bar, yeah, like sign me up. A churro bar, yeah. Like, and the best emails I get are from people that say, thank you for making products in our flavors, and there's like a huge wellness blind spot of like including more people. It's not just one demographic of people. It's a multi-layered cultural demographic out there.
Yeah, that's such a great, good stuff, Clara. Okay. And then the last thing I wanted to kind of like click was Walmart. When you said, if we can prove that we can execute there, it gives other retailers the confidence. Yes, and we've gone back and forth so many times with, the natural channel stores, the smaller stores. There used to be a lot of Walmart has to be the last frontier because the other stores won't take you and the pricing and this and that and the other thing. But you did go to mass quickly. And I'm curious how you were able to manage sort of being in both like a store like Target, a store like Bristol Farms, sort of like, that's a couple of different types of plates.
Yeah.
And again, I think I often now in my non-advice way, I do sort of say the natural channel has gotten incredibly expensive. And at least at some of these stores, it's clearer. The margin is more known, I guess. And you're playing with the big boys, but it's not the worst way to get going as long as you're willing to build awareness kind of through distribution. And that's where you kind of need to invest. But I'd like your thoughts.
Yeah, for me, I wanted to democratize my product. So Walmart was always going to be a big goal of mine because something like 90% of Americans walk into a Walmart every week, right? Target, same thing, right? I wanted my product to be a product that everyone could have access to. And there's ways to do that through differentiating pack sizes and like different products that you can offer different channels. And I had to be willing to be okay with whatever natural grocer that wouldn't take me because of that.
Right.
Like, it's okay, right? Like at the end of the day, we'll get them later. Or, Walmart has 5,000 stores. It's a huge amount of stores.
Yep.
Right. There's a huge market potential there. So for me, it was just being okay that like my main mission, and this brand is actually more mission driven to me because, having come from kind of more just like a profit driven, product driven company, I really wanted the second phase of my life to be something about something I deeply had strong feelings on, and, democratizing wellness and like making products that are healthy that many people can enjoy was really important. And there are no better partners than large customers and small customers. It's really wherever the customer is. Yeah. And if you as a natural customer don't get that or don't appreciate that, then maybe we're not aligned anyway.
Right. Yep. No, I think that's a good point. And in terms of Target, because, you're there, I think that they are, it's such an interesting store. They are innovative and they're willing to take chances, which is I love about them. They're also sort of still not exactly a grocery in terms of like the average trips that people make and the baskets that they're building, although I think that is probably shifting. They've lost some share to Walmart. I think they're kind of gaining it back. It's just a fascinating retailer to me. But I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on how you've stayed competitive there and what's worked for you there. Because I think a lot of the brands that I know are getting chances at Target early, but they end up getting a little bit caught a year in not knowing exactly how to keep going there after that initial trial.
Yeah, every mass retailer is going to be that same story. It's hard. It's hard to build awareness quickly. You need a lot of money. You need a lot of, people helping you. You need a lot of marketing. You need some viral moments. You need like a lot of things. What I think Target does right is that they invest in kind of the founder community. They have a lot of great accelerators. I was lucky to be chosen in the Target Takeoff program, and we're the first of 10 brands that were chosen to be accelerated in the food space. And that was like, because we were the first, I think like it was kind of like a blueprint that we were making. And it was really important for me to, have the ears of like the very highest levels at Target to like just tell them that, like, if they want to change the food landscape, they have to give brands like us a chance to try, to work with us on it. That it's not like,
Right.
We're not a giant food conglomerate where we can afford
Right.
all the things that they want us to afford. But they have great programs. I think that they, at the end of the day, it's about making a profit and shareholder value. But at Target, there are great programs. There are great resources. I would suggest anybody that wants to do business there to, apply for the Target Takeoff. And then they have some other ones, Forward Founders, which if you're not quite ready for Target, it's like the step before that.
That's great.
So they really invest in it and they put their money where their mouth is. And I've had a great experience there. And, mass is just tough. It's very, very competitive. Yep. And these large conglomerates, it's their job to put you out of business. Right. And so the retailer has to put a stake in the ground to say, no, we believe in differentiation and innovation. And yes, we don't need the 30th SKU of one brand.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Okay. So this is a good segue into what I think of you as is, yes, of course you're a founder. Yes, of course it's fun learning more about Unite and the bars and the story, but you also are a founding member of Included. I know that you work with SKU. I know that, you're a leader in the leadership world, not just the product world. I mean, YPO and, all of it. I have a few questions, but I guess before, you go kind of into each thing, I'd love to hear a little bit, what you would take away if you had to make like a top 5, leadership pieces of wisdom, that you would like to leave everyone with when they, after they call you for support. What are the things that you really want to emphasize to people?
Well, from a leadership perspective, it's really about believing in yourself first. If you don't believe in you and what you're doing, nobody will believe in you and they can see right through it. So I think honing that confidence to know that you have a great product, you formulate your own product, learn the ins and outs of it, be confident in it, be confident in yourself, because there are a lot of naysayers that will get you, that will, kind of see it one way. And the truth is, nobody has a crystal ball and things are shifting all the time. So I think that right. Honing that confidence, and you get that by having small wins that you build on. But then from a global perspective, if you want to help yourself, help someone else along the way. Mm-hmm. You will learn so much more, right? As you apply.
I totally agree.
And I do my best thinking when I'm in a YPO group or in a SKU mentor session where everyone is kind of chiming in. And so build yourself a personal advisory board. Build yourself, it doesn't have to be a formal board. Just grab a couple other founders that you respect, that are maybe at the same stage as you, similar scale, or have similar backgrounds or experiences, and have monthly sessions together. I do 2 hours a month with just food CPG founders, right? And we do that religiously every month, same time every month. And I think, surrounding yourself with others really is important. And then helping others through nonprofit work, right? It just really mentoring. I'm trying to climb the ladder and grab the next person up behind me, because I believe in abundance mentality. And I believe in there's plenty for everybody. There's plenty of business out there for everybody, and good people win at the end of the day.
That's beautiful. Yeah. I think I saw a quote. I was doing my research and I read an article that was talking about you, and there was a Churchill quote.
Yeah, it's the racehorse quote, right? It's the reason that racehorses wear blinders is because you have to be focused on your own race. It doesn't matter what the horse next to you is doing. And sometimes, there are brands from my Target Takeoff cohort, for example, that have really accelerated, and some that decelerate, and some that aren't around anymore. There's run your own race. And I think for me, I'm never going to give up. I'm never going to give up, right? That fortitude, or that mental space of I'm never going to give up. I'm just going to keep pivoting until I figure everything out, because everything is figure outable.
Yeah. And I think, I think the difference between me when I'm well rested, I think this business is basically like you get 6 punches in the face and then you get one like, hey, this is awesome, and basically the business is like figuring out how to not lose your grip between the, hey, this is awesomes and just, if it's 7 punches in the face, then you start to be like, uh-oh, where's the, hey, this is awesome,
I would say that too. Like, if you're not thinking of throwing in the towel every month, are you even an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
It's just so normal.
Exactly. And it's funny because I was also completely random and embarrassing. I was listening to this podcast about The Bachelor because, again, I enjoy it. And Ben from The Bachelor, of all people, was like, he was giving advice to someone. I'm like a listener on this random podcast. And he's like, your family, like they definitely want to, be supportive of you. And I'm sure they love you and they don't want you to like bottle up your stuff, but they don't want to talk about your work for 3 to 4 hours a night after you get home. Like it's very hard for founders. We need, to your point about this group of people, it is an imperative for us to have other people in our position who feel the pressure. It can't be your team. It can't be your family. Your friends have no idea what you do. I mean, it is amazing to me. I've been running a business for 12, 13 years. My friends, I love them. They ask questions. They have no idea what I do for a living. And it's fascinating to me. So you really do need those people because otherwise you end up spilling it out onto people who at best are not interested. And at worst, it can actually like break up your relationship.
Yeah, you're so right, Allison. Like for me, I would say your network is your net worth. And you're right. Your family does not want to hear about your business 24/7. They're not as passionate about you, about it as you. And like even I work with my husband. He works in this business with me. And we try not to talk about it because you do want life and work balance. So it is important to have a place where you can go and process your issues. But it has to be not like a place where you just go and bitch and complain, but a place where you're going to hold each other accountable. And you're really going to move that needle forward for each other.
Yep. Okay, those are incredible leadership lessons. In the last couple minutes, I would love you to talk a little bit about Included, the work that you do, what it's providing, and how people can learn more.
Thank you so much for that opportunity. Yeah, Included is a nonprofit, and we're made up of just volunteers like myself. And there's, 5 other founders. We all kind of got together to help amplify underrepresented voices in CPG, and especially for founders of color in food CPG. Sometimes information isn't as available to everybody or, learnings. And so we just wanted to kind of clear those pathways. If like, you don't have like an uncle that's been in food CPG, or if you don't, you didn't grow up in this food CPG world, or you don't know anything about it. Like I didn't know anything about food CPG. I didn't even know one person in 2019. And now it's like, I know thousands of people, it feels like, on LinkedIn in this space, and really to kind of clear the deck and give everybody a shot and really help amplify voices in this community. And we've been really lucky to have great partnerships with New Hope and Specialty Food Association, where we get booths that we are able to give to our Included members to kind of
That's awesome.
Make it easier to get on that on-ramp, because it is a big investment to have booth space at these shows and really amplify the brands and, help retailers who are looking for brands like these and brands like ours. So it's been something I'm really proud of. It's the largest collective of BIPOC CEOs in the country. And if anybody wants to learn more, they can go to includedcpg.com.
Amazing. And for those of us who are not BIPOC CEOs, what would you say is the number one thing that we can do to support our community and to bring, some attention to other voices around us and help clear that deck?
I love that question because, that's the whole reason I started Unite, is to bring people together. It's not about celebrating our differences. It's celebrating more about how we are the same. And I think in the same way that we talked about earlier in the show about how you have to look at buyers through an empathetic lens. What do they care about? Who are they trying to attract into their to their stores. Maybe it's a mom or a woman who cooks for her family, like might be the case in your space, Allison, like kind of aligning around those values and like making it clear that you are the product that solves for that problem. It always goes back to what's the problem you're solving.
Right. Yep.
For the consumer.
Totally.
It always, if you start there and answer that question, that's where you win. So everybody has a unique point of view. Even if you're, selling a protein powder to just guys that like to bulk up at the gym, that's a very unique perspective. Like align to retailers looking for that, align to communities looking for that. And there's plenty of business out there for everybody and every point of view, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Well, you are just as much fun to interview as I thought you were going to be. My running to you in slow motion made all the sense in the world. I had a buyer. This is just like the last final second. I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast before, but I had a buyer who came to our booth at Expo. I've been waiting to meet this woman for 4 years. And she has one of our product lines. She's considering the other. She kind of came up to the booth and I literally went, "Oh my gosh." And my arms went out like I was going to hug her. And she put her arms in front of me, like in between us, and was like, "Please don't."
Oh, she got the Heisman.
Don't. Yeah. And I was like, "Oh no, I've been waiting for this for 4 years." And I just scared her. Like she thought I was going to I probably would have hugged her, is the truth, because I don't know. I guess whatever. I'm a hugger.
Maybe it's a purple cow thing. We're huggers. I'm a hugger too. I would have.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, I said to the team after, I'm like, I don't know that retailer is going to come on board quite as quickly as we hoped, because I think I scared the buyer and got into her physical space. But I'm glad that I hugged.
Well,
and
I'm glad you hugged me too. No.
Yeah, I think we need to get off the pod and exchange our favorite things. We should do that. That'll be fun.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, Clara, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on and drop all of this amazing wisdom. Thank you so much for being my guest.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
And Liam, thank you as always, and Heritage Radio Network. I keep saying it, but I love that this is not monetized. I love that it's just, free content for people who need it. And that wouldn't be possible without Heritage Radio Network, which is a nonprofit organization in itself. So Yahoo. And listeners, I am taking a little break. It's August and I'm going to take a few weeks off. But I'll be back at the end of the month with another episode of In the Sauce. In the Sauce is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.